Well, welcome, and I am your host, and my name is Britton. Today, I just wanted to get on here before we start our conversation and let you know that I am not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I speak to people that are in those professions, and this channel is for information only. Hopefully, it's good information that you can apply to your life. So, as I speak to those guests, and if you feel like you want to support any of those, some of them are authors, blogs, mental health advocates. They have foundations, not-for-profits. If you want to support those people, I'll put the links in the description below. Also, if you'd like to support the Suicide Monk podcast and help keep this moving forward, I'll put that GoFundMe in the link below. I'll put the link down there for the Ashes to Life coaching as well. And don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps us keep moving forward. And any prayers, lifting up, good vibes, we will take them. Thanks a lot. Again, we'll see you on the good side. Well, welcome to the Suicide Monk, and my name is Britton Day. And today we have Lillian Brummet. She's here to join us and talk to us about some of the books that she's written, and a lot about her life and what she grew up with and who she is today, and how that's profoundly changed her. So welcome, Lillian. I'm glad you're here. Are you feeling better? I know we had some setbacks, but that's okay. Are you feeling better now?
11, what is it now? 13 days with this darn flu. Boy, it really hit me hard this year.
Really?
Oh, yeah, wow. I've never been so sick. Yeah.
Well, hopefully I'll get around it. I've been isolated for a while, and I keep hearing people getting sick, and I'm like, I think I'm okay. I haven't been around anybody, so.
Right. Do we really need to go visiting?
Right. Yeah. So,
Hmm.
well, thanks for being here. I appreciate it. You're an author and co-author. I assume your husband is the other author on the books that you guys have written? Okay.
That's right. He's the technical mastermind behind everything that we do. So really he does, the final proofing, the final edits. He does the cover design. He does the uploading to the publishers. He takes care of any technical issues that arise along the way. He provides all the audio and the ads and the graphics and manages a lot of stuff on that end for us, which is just fantastic because that's really where his talents lie. I mean, he's a fantastic writer, of course, but to have him be able to take that side of it. And then I take the other side where I'm usually the face that people see when we're doing interviews like this. I do most of our social promotions. I manage most of the office activities. And so we sort of break off the what we're each comfortable doing and assign those tasks to each other. And it means not one person has to do everything. And it's so helpful to have that partnership.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you don't want to get rid of him. You might want to keep him.
No. Well, 36 years now we've been together. Wow. So I think he's going to stick around. Yeah.
Yeah, there's still time. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's great. That's awesome that you guys, that's a great work environment where you can do, work towards your talents. And then I'm sure you guys work outside those on each side. So you're still learning and keeping that moving and learn, keeping it fresh. So
keeping it fresh and keeping each other motivated, even when we're really not motivated, to really, when we're feeling down or depressed or overwhelmed, and to have the other person, to be able to turn to and say, look, I'm feeling this way about this thing. And even just to talk about it, vent a little bit, cry on someone's shoulder, and then get back at the work. It's so helpful to have that mentorship for each other, whether we find it in writers groups or in online groups or where have you. Just having that support system is so important as an entrepreneur, because it can be very overwhelming and you can feel it's daunting and exhausting and everything seems to take so long and you're wondering, am I doing everything right? And then another challenge comes up and you're thinking, my gosh, what next? And to have someone else who's feeling that way. I have quite a few of those. There's a lady I meet with occasionally on Mondays. And she's a senior going through a writing career at that stage of her life.
Mm.
And so I'm able to be her mentor, but she's also mine on a spiritual level, an emotional level, because whenever I'm feeling that way, we get the giggles, and we
Yeah.
laugh about how frustrated we are. And then once it's over, it seems like we can face it with like a fresh outlook and not
Yeah.
be so filled with all the chatter in the head.
Isn't that the case for really any mental health? I mean, if you
Yes.
apply that to mental health, it's like, not that that particular situation is, but that's really like if you
Hmm.
can vent this stuff out a little bit, kind
Yeah.
of release that pressure, you can
Hmm.
work through and get through the muck and the other, get to the other side a little bit better. So that's
That's right.
awesome. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, what you'd written some stuff in your bio that was really interesting. You've been on your own prior to obviously growing up in the adult world, but on your own as a basically a young woman, teenager. And you said both your brothers were on their own at young ages as well.
Hmm.
Can you tell me a little bit about your background and your story and who you are?
Yeah. Yes, I can. Okay, so I do have two older brothers. Both of them are functioning adults in marriages and children and doing very fine now. But when we were growing up, it was really, really difficult for us. I mean, my mom married 5 times. We moved 13 times before I was 8 years old.
Mm.
I was, we were all brought up from the US to a very tiny village in Canada, rural village, mountain village, to I think my mother's fourth marriage, and or third marriage, and she married a man who was an alcoholic and an abuser. This is the second husband that she married who was an abuser, and so he really bullied my
Physical?
brothers. Yes,
Oh, okay.
he very much bullied my brothers, and he was visiting me inappropriately at night. And so, she ended up sending me away rather than divorcing him. Both
Hmm.
her kids, both her sons, had left the home for survival when they were each 16. As soon as they turned 16, they were out. So I
Wow.
was left behind. And then when she found out that this was going on, rather than leaving him or protecting me, she sent me away. So I was sent to a small boarding school in Kitwanga, which is near Prince Rupert in BC, Canada.
Hmm.
And I was there for a couple of years. So a couple of years of just growing up without my mom and not knowing her at that really crucial age. And then being called back when she finally did decide to leave him because he became abusive to her. And so she made that decision then. And at that point, I found myself torn between loving her and wanting to be loved by her and also hating her, angry at her for the choices that she made, for choosing her men over her children, for sending me away rather than protecting me. For all of those things, I was really, really angry. And so that didn't make it easy on my mom, right? So she has this, very, very upset child that she now has to deal with on top of everything else of
Yeah.
her, third ruined marriage and starting over again. And so it was very, very difficult for her. We moved in together, lived in an apartment, and then eventually moved into a house. And it just wasn't working. We had a really hard time getting along. She blamed me. She was jealous of me because of the attention that I got from from her husbands. And so there was a lot of anger going on there on both sides. And one day I just came home from a babysitting job, and I had two garbage bags sitting on the porch with a note, and I was on my own. So I was 13, just over 13 at the
Hmm.
time. And so that summer, the first, it was in the middle of summer. And so I spent some time on like park benches and also at parents' houses until other kids' parents. So I would spend the night for 2 or 3 nights at
Okay.
one place and spend the night somewhere else until they started to realize that, this is a kid that doesn't have a home and questions were being asked. And then I would move on to the next place. And so that's really how my early life started was that I was already working. I had always worked to pay my own clothes and buy what I needed. We
Hmm.
were always very poor. So as kids, we always did odd jobs or cleaning houses or
Sure.
delivering things or, anything, everything that you could do for cash, mowing lawns, whatever. And so I was used to that. And I just fell into that. By the time winter hit, I was able to get my first apartment, which I rented illegally. I didn't know at the time that I was being rented this place illegally. The manager who was running the establishment didn't claim the apartment was being rented. And he was pocketing it. I had no idea any of that was going on. And about a year later, I had an eviction notice on my door. That was really my own fault because I had an open door policy. All the runaways, all the kids who needed a place to stay, they were
Hmm.
welcome at my place.
Yep.
I didn't have anything. I had a beanbag chair. I had a beat up chair. I had a coffee table. That was it. And so, we basically lived on, tomato soup and lettuce sandwiches and whatever we could afford and just sort of hung out and survived. And that was my first experience of being on my own.
So a little Peter Pan going on there.
A little bit. Yeah. Yeah. It was so much that you're in it
Yeah.
that you don't even realize what you're going through.
Yeah.
And even much later, like in my 30s, people would be connecting with me from back when. And, hey, remember me from school or whatever. And they would say to me, I always thought it was so strange that you never had any furniture and we never saw your mom and there was never any food. And we always thought this was really weird, but we didn't know what to make of it. And I didn't know at the time, but most of the people back then had no idea that this is what I was going through. I mean, it wasn't something we talked about. I didn't say, hey,
Right.
this is my own apartment and look at me working all day while you're in school. None of that happened. None of those conversations happened. So it was a real wake up call for me in my 30s to realize that all my friends and peers from back then had no idea that that's what I was going through.
Yeah. And you'd think they would have some clue, but you're
No,
right. I mean, there wasn't a lot of discussion about those things. I
no,
mean, it was your friends were avenues for entertainment, really.
that's right.
It wasn't this. Gosh, I mean, my friends didn't know half the stuff that was. I lived with my friends, and they didn't know half the stuff that was going on
Yeah.
and at my home when I would go home.
Mhm.
They knew nothing actually, um, because we didn't spend time there, and we didn't talk about it.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so
Well, it's
wow,
the last thing you want to do, isn't it?
yeah,
Especially at that age, is to talk
yeah,
about it and relive it and examine it. You want to pretend it didn't exist. You want to be somebody else.
hmm,
You want to do something else. You're distracting yourself rather
constantly.
than yes, yeah,
Yeah, at school, after school, before school, drugs,
yes.
alcohol, anything
Hurting
smoking.
yourself, yeah,
Yeah,
doing dangerous
anything.
things, whatever,
Oh yeah. I
Yeah.
I don't know if I ever got over the dangerous stuff.
Uh-oh.
I'm starting to slow down a little bit, but yeah,
Good.
yeah. So, well, that's something else. That's incredible. Did you have any struggles with like addiction or anything growing up? I mean, when you grow up, working and having to
Mhm.
survive in that manner, it becomes a little bit different lifestyle. You kind of miss out on the party per se as a youth, or I mean, obviously, you probably missed out on a lot. Those, sports activities and extracurricular stuff because you're working and even educationally.
Yeah, I actually I had no idea who I was.
Hmm.
I didn't know how to be a girl. I didn't know what what the big joy was in getting a boyfriend. I didn't understand any of my peers. Like none of that. They're all into their Barbies and their makeup and getting dressed up and going to gatherings and giggling over boys and all of that. I wanted nothing to do with that. I didn't
Well, you
want that
probably didn't
kind
have
of
room.
attention, right? I
Yeah.
mean, who wants that? So
Well, you're in
so
survival mode at that point. I mean,
that's right.
you don't really have, I was thinking about this the other day. I spent so much time in survival mode that
Yes.
I fell through the cracks in school because it was no better at
Yes.
school for me than it was at home. So I I didn't have the capacity to learn what I needed to learn in school because
Mhm.
my occupation was survival.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. When I was in my 20s, just before I started my first business, I was going to college and putting myself through college. And I took some courses on like personality evaluations that
Yeah.
would allow you to see where your skills might lie or your interests might lie and how that could apply to potential careers in the future. What kind of careers that I might fit into, that I
Oh
might do
yeah.
well in. And all of the questions were beyond me. Do I like to work outside? I don't know.
No clue.
Does it pay? You know, that was, I had no idea about interests or likes or
Right.
desires or, what colors do I like or even when I like to eat, did it fill the hole? Great, I'm off. I just didn't, I never thought about those kinds of things. And so those questions uh, threw me threw me into depression because I felt like very lost.
Hmm.
You're asking me all these questions, and I have absolutely no idea, and I don't know how to find those answers. It took me a long time to deal with that.
Yeah, I totally get that. Even recently, I just discovered my own laugh, and
Mm,
it's because I mimicked other people's that I admired their laugh or the way they
right.
carried themselves. Or I was
Yeah.
very much an observer of behavior, so I understood how to react in society until my anger got a hold of me and the tantrum started, and then as all gloves were dropped. but
Uh,
but that was my mo, is like I'd stand back, I'd watch, because nobody wanted to play with me, nobody wanted to be my friend, nobody. I was an outsider that was weird and cried a lot, and so my observation of society began to take shape at a very young age, within
uh,
myself, and I didn't know who I was in so many ways. Had no identity whatsoever. It was
uh.
always an outside identity that I applied to my own life.
That's right. I wrote this poem about that and talked about
Mm.
faces that I've learned to put on because it was appropriate. Put this face on now because this is the appropriate face to wear. This is the one that people want to see right now. And
Mhm.
then when something else, this is the face that I'm putting on. This is the laugh I'm using. This is the voice I'm using. And none of them were me. None of them
Right.
were me. Right. But I think looking back, we are all products of what we're exposed to. So all of us are absorbing from the people around us
Mhm.
and what we're reading and what we're told and all of those um, faces that we tried on and practice with. Is this me? You know, is part of this me? Could this part be me? And sometimes it feels like, well, did I manufacture me then?
Mhm.
Or am I really me? And
Right.
so you feel this disassociation. It takes a long time to come to some sort of balance there, you know?
It really does. And then you pick it apart and you're like, it goes down to the core. And
Mm,
what is my true nature? And
mm,
that's where I find me. And that's
mm.
where I find my laugh and my joy and my peace and my kindness and my love and all the good things. I'm like, okay, that's who you are. And
Yes.
in and
There
then I
you are.
can, yeah, and then I can
Mhm.
adapt my behaviors according to what my true nature is. And
Right.
and I have something to work on now because those outward reactions that I've built as a kid no longer stand true to
Mm.
protect me. My protection is very different, and it should be very different. It's just I never navigated out of that young boyhood until I started to become an adult in my 50s.
Well, we really have to go through those stages, right? Those
Yeah.
stages are absolutely necessary to the healing process. There
Mhm.
was a period where I survived on anger, absolutely survived on anger,
Yeah.
and self-loathing. I totally hated myself. I absolutely felt so weak that I didn't have the strength to end my own life, that when I tried, I had failed. And I just thought, yeah, there's just one more thing you failed at. And I always felt like these stages that I was going through were, were too much for me, too overpowering, too big of a thing for little me to face. And yet somehow I went through it. And each one of those stages, I look back in gratitude now. I mean, there was a time when I thought, man, I'm so weak for being so angry all the time. Why can't I
Yeah.
just not be so angry?
Mhm.
And yet that anger was what helped me survive. It was what pushed me forward. It was what made me fight against the system that said I wasn't good enough and that I was never going to measure up and I was always going to be the black sheep and I was always going to be less than. And I stood up and said, no, that's not going to, I'm not going to do that. And I would get angry and I would get belligerent and stubborn and I would double down on self-discipline and I would become incredibly tenacious about pursuing something and proving that I could do this, despite you, despite what you've done to me, despite that. And that pushed me into areas of myself where I was able to grow. So without that anger, I might not have gone through the healing process like I did. It was my protection, but it was also what drove me. Um, it doesn't, I wouldn't consider it a healthy therapeutic way to go about doing things, but it was what I needed at the time to
Mhm.
survive. And I became okay with that. You learn to just forgive self, accept self, and just say, it's okay. I was there. That was then. I'm moving forward now. One thing that has really helped me lately, I'm in my mid 50s now. And one thing that really helped me was this saying that, like a mantra sort of thing. And it says, I only compare myself to who I was yesterday. And
Hmm.
that took a lot of pressure off me in my 50s. It was like, I don't have to keep comparing. I don't have to keep playing those records of, oh, remember when you were an idiot? You know, all these voices come up. Remember this? You don't want to forget that. Look how horrible of a person you were. And then I think, that was then. I only have to compare myself to who I was yesterday. And that gave me that space to just be okay with me.
Hmm.
And I don't know, it changed things for me in my 50s, that one statement.
Wow. How's the anger changed for you?
How has the anger changed? Um, there are times when I get to have conversations about relationships with my late mother or other family members when I think, how could you? And that was awful. And you left me and all of that. And those things, those moments can bring up some anger because of the injustice, like a righteous sort of anger comes up where, you know, um, they should have been and they weren't. Um, I have also learned over time with learning how to forgive myself. I have also learned how to forgive others. Not saying what they did was okay, because I wasn't, but where they were as a human being, with the pressures that they had, with the mental health situation that they had at that time, they did what they did. And so that I can become okay with,
Hmm.
if that makes sense.
It does. It does. I'm actually going through the same thing right now. Um, I find myself, I pace a lot. When I'm thinking, I find myself pacing. And
Yep.
during that pacing and my thought process, I'll get going. I find myself grumbling about certain situations.
Mm-hmm.
And as I grumble and I recognize this, I'm like, but I thought you forgave that, Britton. I forgot. I thought you forgave that
Right.
situation and that person. And you realize that that one thing doesn't relate to the whole relationship. And it's not the equation for the whole relationship. So why are you grumbling right now? And then the next question is, do you really forgive them if you're grumbling? And I'm like,
Well, forgiveness doesn't mean that you don't have an emotional reaction to it,
right. But then,
right?
right.
It doesn't mean that you have, oh, it's all peace and joy now. It's not all peace and joy now.
But
What it
shouldn't it
does
be?
mean, it should. Should is a
But
halo
isn't
in the
that, is
sky
it?
that doesn't exist,
Well, I
I
don't believe
think.
that. I don't. I don't
I
believe that. I
feel
think.
personally, I feel personally that forgiveness is a letting go. It's
Mhm.
like, okay, let me put it this way. They, this individual hurt me, and I have this festering wound, and
Mhm.
it's oozing. I mean, it's gross. And I have done what I could with it, but it's still festering. It's still infected. And then I do some examination and I realize, you know what? I've left that hook still in there. That fish hook that is in this wound, it's still in there. So I get to take that out. I get to take that out. And that wound is going to go through its healing process. It's going to ache. It's going to hurt me. I'm going to have a scar there. I'm going to look in the mirror. I'm going to see that wound. I'm going to see that scar. But it doesn't mean that it has to continue being an open, festering, oozing wound. You see what I mean? Like it's still there. It still aches. There's like, it's there, and it has affected me and it's impacted me today as who I am, but I don't have to continue to let it rot and fester. I can stand up and be my own hero. I can let that wound heal and I can move forward from there. So for me, that's kind of more like where forgiveness is. It's not necessarily the slate's clean, everything's perfect now. It's not. Um, there were,
Yeah, I don't think that cleaning a slate is necessarily the. I mean, that's a Christ mentality.
yeah,
Um,
it just doesn't happen.
well, I think it does. I think there's
Do you?
possibility for it. I do, and I say that because I'm presented with the question, and
Hmm.
I think the question is the possibility of, because the question arises, it's the
Yep.
possibility of making that happen or allowing that to happen or whatever that is. The
Mm.
there's possibility for full reconciliation, I guess, is the point. And I see that because I feel like that is a light in my life that I'm looking at right now, that there is possibility, because that these little things that hold on to me create the negative response system that I was um, raised in, to protect myself. And I think now that I've been able to tear a lot of those walls down, and as I grumble about, say, my mother or a situation with a friend, I find myself, instead of grumbling now, I'm
Hmm.
praying for them. And not for their attitude or what they did to me or anything, but for them to have the blessings of life. And whether that happens for them is irrelevant, and what it's doing to me is relevant. And what it does to me is it stops me grumbling. It stops me from giving that anger a spark to hold on to, or a
Mhm.
foothold. So that's where, and then it's not just forgiveness for me though, it's grace, because now I have to give them grace to be exactly who they are every single day. And
Mm.
if they hurt me again, then those are what a lot of people would call boundaries. And so um, there's certain things that I won't allow. And I can just call that respecting myself. It's not really
That
keeping anybody out. It's just saying, this is how you respect yourself, Britain. So that's a different
mhm.
narrative for me as well. It's like, I'm not trying to like keep from being hurt anymore. I'm just trying to keep respect myself in a way that doesn't hold on to this outside source anymore. And I think that's the like I discovered that child in me. Not that I'm not a Toys R Us kid anyway, and I like to play, but that really raw openness and acceptance that
Mhm.
we have, like, kids don't see color, they don't see a lot of things, they really don't have prejudices that we do as adults. And that's what I had a lot of that, so I'm pretty fortunate because I grew up in different neighborhoods and poor and stuff like that. So I was very fortunate to experience different culture in that way, and it made me very appreciative of all cultures. I don't think we have that necessarily in America. That opportunity. I think that's what our country was supposed to be, but it's not, and it still struggles with the prejudices. But a lot of these things, I guess I'm getting off track. I I didn't grow up with, but that's what I think has allowed me to say it's very possible to let go of all these things that have, like being molested, being beaten, being beat up on my birthday several times. I mean, that's what my birthdays were about, knockdown dragouts, and just all that stuff. But every single, no, you're right. I would not want anybody to go through what I went through. But I'm so glad that I did, because it's made me the person I am today. And none of us walk this earth without suffering.
Mm.
And I think the invitation to life is to accept that suffering and walk beside it, and not necessarily keep allowing it, um, but really start to learn to value myself. And when I start to value myself, I can start to understand other people and
Mm.
their struggles. Um, but I've also been through a lot of struggles, so that helps me as well. I mean, there's a lot of aspects to this. But I really do believe that I can have full forgiveness in my life, and full, like, yeah, yeah, it just happened that way. One of my friends says that, and I already mentioned this, the event that happened is not the definition of the relationship. Just because what caused this thing is not the definition of losing a friend. I was like, okay. And then my other friend, young woman, she says, maybe God's pruning you of the people that don't need to be in your life for the people that do. But those
Mm.
people behind you are relevant to who you are now. So you can be as of benefit to those people that are coming. And I think that's the same way with my trauma. If
Mhm.
I'm looking at it from even a resentful standpoint, I don't know how I can help somebody else heal. I can give them good advice and good this, but when they see me speak poorly or grumble or um, are upset about something that I should be over, it's not a new thing,
Mm.
then trust doesn't really take hold. I don't think. And suicidal people or mental health people, we're very distrusting in general. So we need all the evidence to support the fact that we can trust what's going on. And that's where I really believe that I can take care of this. I really, really do. No, I know I can. I know I have the capability. I know it's built within me
Mm.
to put these ugly things to rest, because they shouldn't have a hold on my life at all anymore.
Mm.
Does that make sense? I'm not
Yes, it
disagreeing with
does.
with what you're saying, and we are all doing our own thing. This is a new system for me. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
just instituting new beliefs, practices, and creating opportunity for me to succeed. And I believe I can succeed in this area. I know I can. I keep saying believe, but I think there's two different realms of between believing and knowing. And I think the knowing is saying I will, and that's where success comes a lot of times.
Right.
So I know that was very long. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
So I hope that's encouraging, if
Yes.
nothing else,
Mm.
because we all hold on to these things that these hurts and these traumas and abuses, and it's like
Mhm.
they already took so freaking much. I would rather forgive them and let the universe deal with it. I'm so tired of holding on. I'm so tired of being
That's what I
broken by.
mean about taking that hook out,
Yeah,
and allowing those wounds to heal.
yeah,
Because, and we have that ability
yeah,
now to take that hook out. I mean, they might have put that hook there, but we can take it out and we
yeah,
can nurture ourselves and allow
yeah,
that to heal, and it makes us a stronger person for others, as you say.
yeah.
Um, believe that very much that I mean, heck, if I didn't go through what I went through when I was young, I may not have survived being on my own so young because I may not have had those strengths.
Right.
I may not have already been accustomed to working for cash and, being able to pay for things and knew how to buy and,
Yeah,
buy my own clothes and things like that. All of those things, I knew how to make the odd little meal and things like that because I had to do that at
yeah,
home.
yeah.
And so if I hadn't have had those experiences, it would have been harder for me to be on my own so young. When I was in my 20s, it was that determination that led me to running my very first business.
Hmm.
I was terrified about starting my own business and full of self doubt. And yet, 6 years, I ran that business very successfully before a car accident took that away from me. But I was able to, you know, hold my head up really high. I had
Hmm.
staff. You know, I was paying my own way. I had independence. It was a very good time for me in regards to I had the strengths already in
Yeah,
place for me to make those steps. As much of a struggle as it was for me, if I didn't have those experiences, I probably wouldn't able to do what I did.
yeah, yeah. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's amazing. So what happened there with the car accident? I mean, how did that take the business? Was it?
Oh, well, I was going from one client to another. I was providing domestic services for people, um, fairly wealthy people, people who lived along the lake shore and stuff. And I was going from one place to another. And this lady in front of me was turning left, and I had to slow down, stop behind her. And as I did that, this truck came up behind the two of us, and he didn't see what was going on. And he was speeding, and he slammed into both of us.
Oh wow.
So it wrote my vehicle off. Most of the equipment that I had in my vehicle were worn off, was written off. Her children were injured in front of me, and she was injured as well. It was a big deal. Put me in physiotherapy 5 days a week, a
Oh
few
wow.
hours a day for over a year. They told me I wouldn't walk without a brace on my leg. They told me I would probably be walking with a cane or some sort of assistant. Um, but I ended up being a stubborn little person and put myself through all kinds of physio pain in order to develop the muscle dexterity to be able to
Yep.
walk and be on my own without medical aid. But it has impacted me ever since. I mean, I still deal with migraines. I still have back spasms. I still have issues with my knee and my shoulder and my hip. So, there's issues, physical issues that I still deal with. Sitting very long bothers me. Standing very long bothers me. So I have limitations. Anything overhead, anything from shoulder up is difficult for me. So, there's issues that came from that, but I've been able to live a good life regardless. And, so
Hmm.
I survived. I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm living fine, now. I have a very supportive husband. And after the accident, it actually led me to my writing career,
Oh,
because I had to refocus. What can I do now? You know? And writing kept on coming up, and I kept thinking, no, I have problems with dyslexia. I have, all kinds of self-doubt issues. I'm not a hugely educated, degree at the yin yang person. Who's going to listen to me? What value would my words have out there in the world, And it took a while for me to grow into that. I started with a course that taught me about the business of writing. Like, having run a business before, I knew I needed to know the business of
yeah.
writing, not like the craft, but
Right.
how do I query? How do I manage my queries? How do I manage my books? How do I deal with taxes? What do I do in these situations? When do I follow up? How do I, yeah, at first I was working as a freelance. And then eventually I ended up getting some staff jobs. So, and assignment jobs writing. And so each one of those comes with a different set of skills. You're writing for a specific audience. So you have to really study that audience for that magazine, for that outlet. You have to write specifically for that people. You have to know that magazine inside and out. You have to know what they expect from their writers and what they want you to provide. And you provide that so that you're going to get paid, right? And then you got to wait 3 to 6 months to get paid, because it ain't getting published for 3 to 6 months. So in the meantime, you're pumping out articles, you're submitting, you're querying, you're constantly doing this flow, and you're keeping records, and you got spreadsheets going, and when you're following up with somebody, and when something's supposed to be due, and when you're supposed to respond to this person. And so it was very schedule orientated. And I learned all of those skills in the very beginning of the writing career. And I was very, very grateful for that, for all
Hmm.
of those experiences. As a staff writer, you get assigned. So that means, or assigned assignment writer as well, they say, you're going to go cover this event that's happening in town. Whether you care about that event or not,
Right.
whether you have any interest in that topic, you have to act like you do. And so you try to get very creative with coming up with things. There was a time when I was working as a staff writer where I was doing product reviews, product and book reviews. And I did that for about 7 or 8 years professionally. And that became a challenge, because you don't want to be repetitive. You don't want to say the same thing. You have your own style, your own flow, your own formula that you tend to stick to, but then you got to change it up. You got to keep it fresh and new and interesting for the people that are going to be reading your piece. And so that became a challenge for me. Well,
Hmm.
how am I going to now rework this? I've written 15 book reviews on poetry books this year. How am I going to make this one different from everybody else? And so you get really creative, and you have to really delve into that creative nature. And I found that challenge very, very helpful later on in my writing career.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you took tragedy and turned it into something kind of beautiful for yourself. Passion.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's
Yeah,
that's
about 7 years into the writing career, I realized, I wanted to do something more with my life.
hmm.
See, I was going through a lot of pain, a lot of depression, you know, uh, like chronic depression, and feeling like, you know, if I was going to go on in life, I needed to know that my life had value,
Hmm.
that there was a reason why I existed, that every day I had some kind of impact, whether it was with words or actions, personal, in-house, lifestyle, whatever it was. I felt like at the end of the day, if I couldn't look back and say, hey, I had a positive impact, there was a reason for me to live this day, the reason why I was here today, um, then the next day was going to be harder for me to face. And that became a goal for me. It became so much of a goal that it almost became an obsession for a while. Um, and that helped me a great deal pull out of my depression and to grow a sense of self-worth and a sense of value and purpose and meaning in life, which before I didn't have. It was like you say, just survival. uh, Next challenge comes along, hits me in the face. I got to get up. I got to pull my pants up. No one's going to do it for me. I got to move forward. What can I do with the situation? How can I move forward and grow from there? But this allowed me to grow beyond that, to give myself a reason to move forward every day and a reason to do what I was doing. And once I once I came to a realization that I was having an impact, that people, their lives were being changed by the things that I was writing, um, that gave me such a boost in self,
Hmm.
um, that writing became a joy, like a real joy for me.
Hmm. What do you typically what do you typically write about? I saw some of your books like Trash Talk 1 and 2, or is it 1 and 2? Or
That's
no,
right.
that's is it one and
That's
two?
right.
Okay.
Hmm.
I thought I had that
Yeah,
right.
that was actually
Yeah.
my first book. Trash Talk was based on a column that I wrote for 6 years. It was published internationally, and it was published in Africa and south of France and Canada and the United States and many recycling and environmental magazines. And in this point, I had taken some cues from my previous clients. So there's a scenario. One of my clients, when I was running my business, uh, recycling was just coming in then. And their neighborhood was a trial sort of neighborhood where they were the only ones getting the bins at the
Hmm.
curb. And my client absolutely had to be seen to put out her blue bin and be participating because it was the thing to do, not because it was important or it was of value to her or because she wanted to make a difference, but because she wanted to be seen
Right.
as checking that box. Look at me, I did it. See everyone? And it couldn't just be, you know, over here. It had to be right up in front and of her driveway where everybody could see it. So everybody could, it was all about appearance. And so to me, I saw that and I thought, it's not about pointing fingers and it's not about being seen to do the right thing. I wanted to show people that participating in green activities could have a huge impact. And so I started looking at, well, what is the measurable impact of taking this tin can and recycling it? Well, what if we took this bottle and we turned this bottle into a scoop and now we've extended the life of this product. We didn't go buy a scoop, we made a scoop. And now we have this scoop that we're reusing for the next decade before it ends up falling apart eventually and heading back to the recycling system. What is that measurable impact? And so I started finding these stats and gathering these stats. And that was the beginning of the Trash Talk column, where I was showing here are the real and measurable impact of seemingly tiny actions by one person doing one thing. Look at what can happen. Now multiply that by however many people are doing this.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
that became, people were like, wow, this is really cool. And they started, now I really want to recycle. I was
Mhm.
recycling before and now I really want to. I'm really paying attention to this. And they started really committing themselves. And then they started thinking about, well, how can I reuse or repurpose? And,
Yeah.
all these other R's, there's about 10 R's. And so, how can I go about this and do these things? So I started branching out into all these different R's. And um, the column just grew exponentially after that. Eventually, it became the first edition of the book, and now it's two books. It's a two book series. Yeah, Trash Talk Book
Nice.
1 and 2. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm
Thank
actually
you.
reusing and repurposing now,
Good.
unintentionally, mostly because I'm poor, and
Right.
I'm like, well, I can. How hard is it to wash a baggie? It's just a pain in the
Yeah.
butt,
Yeah.
But I'm like, I don't have to go buy another one, and I don't put it in the trash, and I can reuse that
Well,
until it falls apart.
that's right.
I'm like, okay,
And you can reuse it after that too, right? Because once it starts falling apart, you can cut it open and now it becomes a top for your seedling tray or something like that.
mm.
So there's still some uses that we can we can make out of them before
Oh
it
yeah,
goes into the recycling system. Doesn't mean that we're not going to still send it to the recycling system, but we're extending
right,
the life of that product. In the meantime, we're saving tons of money, like tons of money.
tons of money.
Just one chapter of that book can save you hundreds of dollars
Mhm.
every single year, just by looking at some of these activities. Um, the bags is one of my favorite ones. In fact, I mean, you think that you buy this package of bags, these, zipper type bags, and, you're spending, $6, $8, depending on where you're buying and what size they are. But you might only do that once every 2 to 3 years, as opposed to once every few months.
Right.
So you add those dollars up, and how much are we saving? How much are we extending our family budget so that now we can afford to
Oh,
buy that fruit or that
it,
vegetable or go
it's
to the
amazing.
farmer's market, right?
It's
These
amazing. I
things
got extra
really
money.
do have an impact.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
amazing. I'm not like, oh, I got to go get baggies. Like, I
Right.
got plenty. I just washed a bunch.
Right. Right.
I don't need to go to the store. I don't need to spend the gas to
Mhm.
go to the store, and I don't need to spend the money when I'm at the store to get them. And,
That's
it's
right.
the same thing with everything I'm doing right now. I seem to be like orange juice bottles. I drink a ton of orange juice
Mhm.
because I'm diabetic. So I
Okay.
reuse any bottle that I have. And I'm like, why
Good.
haven't I had to buy an orange juice bottle for a month? Because all I'm doing is
Mhm.
buying the frozen orange juice and using those plastic bottles that I once.
There was decades where I didn't throw out any of those bottles or containers at all. Anything that I could pot something up in. And the reason was this. So, gardener at heart, although
Yeah.
we've downsized and we are currently now in our retirement location, it does have a small lot that comes with this mobile home that we've downsized to. But prior to this, I had a double lot that was entirely landscaped over with edibles, and inside and outside the fence. So even along the curb, we had trees and peach trees and nut
Oh,
trees and whatever. So we made sure every square inch was growing something. Um, and in doing so, we had this beautiful landscape property, which also meant not only were we providing, 80% of our fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds for ourselves on an annual basis, but we were also able to take divisions, cuttings, make all these little transplants, and 2 or 3 times a year I would
yeah.
have these sales where I would be like, here's all these containers that I've been saving up, and I would punch a bunch of holes in the bottom, or Dave would for me, and I would pot up our divisions, our extra strawberry runner plants, rooted raspberry canes or blackberry canes or
Uh-huh.
goji berry canes or whatever, and I would go and sell these things. And I would more than pay for any seeds and any
Yeah.
other garden supplies that I needed to continue to run my gardens at the level that they were. So for 14 years, I did that on that property. 14 years of never out of pocket with our groceries, because everything and anything on the property that needed, like any fertilizers or anything like that, natural fertilizers, we would be able to fund that with these transplants and
Yeah.
divisions and so forth. And it was just a phenomenal way of encouraging other people to garden, but also just to sell our excess. Anytime we needed to divide our lilies, or anytime we had extra seed from the scarlet runner bean patch or
Yeah.
whatever, every single thing got added to the stack of items for sale. And we also had a drum studio downstairs. And there was like a little gift shop there where we had our books and
Huh.
various other things there for students and parents and workshop attendants and stuff. And I would also have like packages of seeds there as well. So
Huh.
there was this trickle in income from the
Yeah.
gift store, but also, like I say, a few times a year we would have these big sales. More often than not, I would just post them on like your local Facebook buy and sell group, and it would be gone within a couple of days. People would just come, make their appointment, pick up their items, and boom, it was gone. It was incredible. It was incredible. I mean, sedum plants was one of my biggest sellers, and they're one of the easiest things
Huh.
to root, and people loved them. So, and they didn't care that it was a yogurt container or a chopped
Yeah.
off, laundry bottle or whatever. They didn't care what it came in, and then of course when they emptied it, they could either reuse it or they could send it to the recycling
Mhm.
at their home, because it's still recyclable,
Yeah.
but at least it was reused one more time. It didn't cost me anything, to
Right.
do it.
Right.
Not a single thing. I used my own compost, my own garden soil. I didn't, nothing, no out of pocket other than labor.
Huh. And there's something rewarding about there. I'm finding I am. It may not be enjoyable to wash the baggie, but it is enjoyable to reuse something that I'm not throwing in the trash, and I find a lot of satisfaction in that. Um,
Yes.
it outweighs the discomfort of washing the baggie. I know that's a simplistic example, but it really is like there's reward behind reuse, and it's an internal reward. Like number one, I saved myself money. I didn't put it back on the planet. I'm you know there's a lot of things that go on in that. I'm like, oh, and then I'm
Absolutely.
just proud of myself for having the innovation to be like, oh yeah, okay, having the willingness to walk down that road with some of this stuff. So it also adds to the reason I bring that up is it
Mhm.
adds to my mental health well-being,
Mhm.
that I'm actually like, I stay clean, helps my well-being. I cook for myself, it helps my well-being. Garden, recycle, do the firewood every day. All these little things were like, but they're rewarding. And if we at them as rewards, we can apply that to our daily life and say that was a worthwhile day. And I do
It
that a
was a
lot.
worthwhile day, and you know that
Uh,
you've had a positive impact,
yeah.
that your actions do matter. And that, you're not only doing it for yourself. A lot of times we think, oh, we're just doing it for ourselves, but we're not, because there's a circle of influence around us
Mhm.
that are having that impact. There's a story that I shared a long time ago. Um, One of my neighbors, she she was she had aged to the point where gardening had become much more difficult for her. But she didn't want to have a lawn on her, just
Mhm.
grass, right? So she sowed everything that used to be gardens, except for a small patch of potatoes and beets and a couple other little things that she kept going. The rest of the place she sowed with flowers, just seeds and seeds and seeds of flowers, just en masse. And then she would cut those flowers and she would take them to her church. She would take them to the senior center. She would take them to her volunteer activities. She would give them to her friends, and she would sell them as well. So people would come to her and say, hey, can you, I need 3 bouquets for a dinner I'm serving.
Yeah.
Can you put together some bouquets of flowers for me, tie them together so I can bring them home and put them in a vase? And she would do that fresh on the spot for them, go out there and cut a bunch of flowers. And she made back her fees. Now, in doing so, how many things is she's doing there that's good? For one, she's beautified the neighborhood.
Mhm.
She's um, she's provided habitat for butterflies and bees and birds. She has influenced every single person who has walked by her property. She has made a positive impact to everyone that's gone to her church, everyone that's attended the senior center, and so on and so forth. One person doing one single thing. And her impact was incredible. She was remembered. She's remembered today. She died a long time ago. I'm still talking about her and the impact that she had and the influence that she had on me as a very young person walking by her place on my way to work.
Yeah. And that's interesting that you, in the mental health field that we're talking in, bring something like that in, because we're always looking for a purpose. And oftentimes I'll say, maybe your suffering is actually your purpose. It's just how you embrace that and move forward. But then you see people like this, and they're like, their purpose is spreading that love and that joy in ways that really just build them up. She enjoyed the flowers. She enjoyed the food. She enjoyed, and then shared that. And that is, it's not always a matter of, you change lives in very different ways when you enter into the very thing that you're supposed to be. Oftentimes we're looking for purpose, and it's like, well, what do you love? What's your biggest adversity, and what do you love to do? And if you can mix the two, my goodness, you're a powerhouse.
Well, people are often looking for the big thing. What's the big, what's the big shiny object that is going to make me the person I think I should be? But really, it's about the smallest of actions, the smallest actions of being kind or thoughtful, complimenting people when you see them. Hey, I really love that shawl that you're wearing. Did you do the embroidery on that? That's gorgeous. Little comments like that can absolutely boost another person.
Yeah.
And then the impact of their influence from that day forward, because they're uplifted now. So the smallest of things that we can do, start where you are. Start how you mean to continue. Start right now, right where you are, in your backyard, and then start thinking of bigger circles after that. It's not the big thing. It's the little things as you build these concentric circles out and out and out. And as you become more and more comfortable doing it, you become more and more inspired and excited by it. And you think, oh, what else can I do? How can I make this bigger? How can I, do more with my own little corner, my own little postage stamp yard? What can I do with this? And you end up becoming more because of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. So tell me about what has been your most profound book that you've written for yourself and others.
Oh, that's such a tough one, because each one of them is a piece of my soul, honestly.
For sure. Let's narrow this down then. Do you have any in the mental health aspect of that?
Yes. Okay. So my very first book of poetry is called Towards Understanding. It's now there's now 3 in the series. But the very first one is about mental health. It's basically, so when I was going through counseling, I felt as a youth that the counselors were book taught, but they didn't have the empathy and the understanding. I was a number. This is the formula, and today we're talking about this, and it was very cold and impersonal. Even though their intent was probably a good one, this is how it felt to me. So when I wrote Towards Understanding, it was my way of negating that. It was my way of saying, this is what it feels like to have gone through what I went through. And I told it in chronological order from the age of about, 15 to maybe 21, something like that, of my healing journey, of the internal dialogue, the raw. It was the raw, and I remember at the time of releasing it, I was terrified. I had gone through, I don't know, 350, 400 poems, and I had uh, downsized it to 150 or 200 or so that went in the book that I was comfortable with releasing. And then it goes to the publisher. Publisher's thrilled. It was a traditional publisher, and and everyone was excited about the release of the book. And I got the release date. Panic absolutely set in. Absolute panic. And I thought, my God, what have I done? You know, I've just not only ripped open myself, and here I am naked with all my warts, take a good look and criticize. That's how I felt I had put myself in. I also was really worried about the impact it was going to have on a really tentative relationship that I was starting to build with my
Mm.
mom. This is before, she passed, of course. But at the time, I was I wanted to be her daughter. I wanted to have
Yeah.
maternal love. I would go and help her on her farm and work with her and come back frustrated and angry and full of all kinds of, "Ugh." But then I would go back the next weekend and I would do the same because it was so important to me to build this relationship. And even though we couldn't talk about a lot of stuff, I mean, that was just, ooh, don't go there. Those are not conversations you want to have, a lot of surface stuff. But we bonded about gardening. We bonded about our love of nature. And she taught me a lot about the health of soil and the biodynamic nature of earth and the how these plants interact together and the mycelium and all of this. She was a master gardener, and I learned a lot from her.
Wow.
And I'll always appreciate that part of her. And those times that we spent together. And without that bond, I don't know that we would have built a friendship that we did. Of course, later on, I became her caregiver, but at the time, I was just releasing this book, and I was really worried about how it would impact her. And I had a meeting with her. I just said, "You're going to have to listen. I'm going to say something. Let me say it all. If you wanted me to go and you want some time to think about it, talk about it later, totally cool." And I just poured it all out. I just said, "Look, this is why I'm doing it, because I want to help others. I'm not doing it to hurt you or to blame you or to point out anybody's flaws or any of that. This is the, my interpretation, the impact that it had on me, my view of those situations at that time, and was, how I healed from them." And she was really tough. She was like, "Oh, no problem, no problem." But then I know when the book came out, it did hurt her, and it hurt me to hurt her. You know, I didn't want to hurt her.
Right.
Seeing her hurt was painful. Um, at first, I thought, oh, maybe it would give me some like gratification that now she sees it, now she understands, now she gets it. But that didn't happen. I felt sorry for her pain. I didn't want to see her in pain, and I didn't want to be the cause of it. And so that was a very painful time, but also I think it was like a massive moment in our relationship too, where the
Healing.
honesty, healing, because the honesty was there, black and
Yeah.
white, the honesty's there, and she could take it or leave it. She could interpret it how she needed to, but it was there for her. And I think that had a huge impact on our relationship.
That's wonderful. Wow. As long as it's in a good way.
It was in a good way in the end.
Then
Yes,
it's wonderful.
because yes. Yeah, we had a lot of good, heavy conversations after that.
Yeah.
And I learned for the first time that she was proud of me. I learned for the first time the sorrow that she had within herself, how much she disliked herself because of some of the choices that she made, how suicidal she was when I was growing up, that I didn't realize until much later, that
Wow.
her depression, I could see it, looking
Mhm.
back and having those conversations. Oh, that's what was going on there. That's why you were acting this way. As a kid, you don't see
Yeah, you can't.
things,
It's hard.
no, you know, but, uh, but as an adult, to view her at that same age, here I am at her age,
Mhm.
seeing what she was going through. And so it was very, very good. It was cathartic. It was painful. It was excruciating. It was long, but it was worth it. Absolutely.
Hmm.
And hearing from the readers, hearing people say to me things like, that these were the words that they could never say, that no one they felt like no one had understood what it
Mhm.
felt like. And
Yep.
here was someone saying the exact words, the feelings that they had. And so to know that that helped them find expression for their feelings, even though they weren't the one who created those words. You know what I mean?
Right.
Kind of like music or poetry, or we we feel this, it impacts us, and helps us along the way, makes us feel less alone. um, and that was powerful too, just to
Yeah.
know that by sharing my story, that all of these strangers out there are finding uh, some comfort from it.
Right. Right. Yeah. No, that's wonderful. I'm I'm glad that's what it turned into for you.
Thank
Um,
you.
as difficult a path those can be. I'm glad you had the openness and the space to be able to do that. And it takes a lot for a parent to be able to allow that space, because it is painful. It's a painful
Yes.
place to be. So, well, good for you. I'm glad that you had that time, and um, you had that ability to spend with your mother. That's beautiful. Even
Thank you.
later on in life, when you'd hoped for it earlier, and but these things shaped who you are, and that's
Uh,
that's the beauty of it. Um, and it's
eh,
given you the avenue to be what you need to be, for other people. That's what I find just fascinating. It's never fun to go through these difficult trials and tribulations that we have in life, and sometimes they last a long time, and it feels like a lifetime. Mine was a very, very long time before I got to right here, and um, but I got to here, and that's the point.
um,
Like, there is hope in the journey. We just oftentimes can't see that,
uh,
when we're in the midst of it. So that's why it's so important that we give back from our suffering and let people know that they're not alone, and that we can put words to some of their pain, not all of it, but some of it, and some of those points, the parts that need to be awakened because they don't know how they're buried for us. So words and inspiration are always welcome in this line, because if you're living, you might as well, or if you're alive, you might as well try to live. And so, is there anything you'd like to leave us with before we close out? Any words of wisdom, advice, anything profoundly that's changed other than something you've already said to us today?
well, first, I'd like to say the program that you have and the topics that you cover are powerful, and the impact that you're having in the world is profound. And I want to thank you for taking the time to put out a project like this. I know it takes a lot of time and energy and thought and process behind the scenes. And then you have the joy of marketing it and pushing it and trying to get it out there to the public. So thank you for doing
Yeah,
that.
thank
I
you.
really appreciate that. Thanks for having me here today. Um, I know your main topic, of course, is about the suicide, and so I just wanted to mention that suicide has been around in my life a lot. Not just the dark thoughts in my own mind, but I watched my parents go through it. Um, my mother was chronically ill, and her fifth husband, she and her fifth husband, took their own way out and left me behind to deal with their estate. I've had friends and coworkers who have made that choice. And I have to say, for those of you who have those dark thoughts, you matter. You matter a great deal. The value of your life is so important, even though you may not see it right now. The impact that you can have on the world and likely are having from the people around you who watch the strength that you have, struggling through your depression, struggling through the dark times, and yet you face another day. I don't know if you realize how much other people look up to you for that. And so hold on and know that you have value. Know that there is a reason why you exist, and keep moving forward through the struggles, because it will get better. There will be brighter days. There'll be darker days too, but there will also be brighter days, and the brighter days will become more frequent as you get stronger in life, as the challenges become less of an obstacle in your life. So that's what I would like to say. I'm
Yeah.
so grateful that I didn't have the strength to end my own life, as much as it angered me many times,
Yeah.
thinking, how weak am I? How can I not? But here I am today, having an impact every single day. And that's huge. That's absolutely huge. It gives me a
Yeah.
reason to get up in the morning, to face the chronic pain, to get through the depression, and to move forward in the day. And it's knowing that. So even if you don't feel it yet, you are having an impact and you do have value. So
Yeah.
embrace that.
Yeah. And suicide is general. I mean, it's in general, it is a poor reaction to life based on the lies that we tell ourselves and been told. I mean, it's just, it's not a. I don't
It's an
think it's an,
exhaustion.
well, it is, and I don't think it
It is.
inherently
I think,
we're built to take
yeah,
life. I don't think we're inherently built to take human life
right,
in any regard, whether it be
right.
our own or somebody else. It's not weakness to not be able to take your life. It is exactly who we're meant to be. It's what we're built to be, is to not take our life. It just happens to be one of those altruistic things that you have control over. And whether that be a good choice or not, well, nine
That's
times
right.
out, well, about 10 times out of 10, it's a bad choice, because there is hope and there is something more and there is something that we're not seeing. That, and I 8 months ago, I'd have told you different. I'd have told you totally different. This would not be my argument. I would have said suicide is a very viable and even admirable avenue, because we saw it in different cultures throughout the world, but it's not really choosing life either. You're
Right.
choosing not to live, and you have that choice. It's just, when you choose to live, and that's kind of what we see throughout this podcast. When people get through their suffering and choose to live, they tend to start heading towards their purpose and their desire and the things that bring them peace and the thing that they're naturally built to do. So
I started this series on my blog of articles called Getting Out of the Rut. And so if anyone has a chance, go to Brummet's Conscious blog, just look it up online and scroll through the archives, look for the Getting Out of the Rut series. I think there's about 10 articles going back about a year. And in that, I share ways that I help myself crawl out of depression. So it would be very small things,
Yeah.
very simple things, starting very small, and feeding yourself moments of positivity and building upon those like a snowball until it
Yeah.
becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, and your days become brighter. But it doesn't happen all at once. There are still times when I hit lows and I deal with some depression. Um, and it's kind of like my go-to. I Life comes along, hits me in the face, and boom, I start going down. So I go back to those very same skills that I share in those articles.
Hmm.
And I start from the very beginning. Am I having my glass of water in the morning? I'm going to celebrate that. Am I taking my vitamins? I'm going to celebrate that. I'm going to take small, tiny actions every single
Yeah.
day towards positivity of self-care. And then I'm going to snowball that effect and grow it into being back into positivity. So I really encourage people to check out those. Those are skills that I've learned in my lifetime, and I put them in very step-by-step format, so they're very easy to
Nice.
follow. The articles might seem like, oh, those are just small things, but that's the point.
That is
Little
the point.
small things,
Yep.
and move forward from there. It's a success. Move forward and just keep going like that. It really does make a difference.
It
Getting
makes a
out of the
huge
rut. The
difference.
problem is you
Yeah.
get in this rut, right?
Yeah.
Where you're just exhausted and you don't know what to do, and it's dark and you just want to be alone, and you curl up in a ball in a dark room and forget everything.
Yeah.
But breaking those moments of sunshine, letting the fresh air, and doing littlest of things that bring joy into your life, moments of brightness into your life that become joy as it grows.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for sharing your story and your
Thank you.
struggles and the hardships, and also your success. I mean, and the books and everything. I really appreciate you being here and
Thank
being
you.
part of this and supporting this. So, yeah, thanks so much. So
Thank you.
we'll see you on the good side.